want to officially welcome you all to the first episode of our EndoSocial Series. My name is Dr. Alekszandra Rokvity, and the goal of this series is to highlight non-medical research in endometriosis. I myself am a specialist in medical humanities with a focus on endometriosis, so this is why I have a very personal vested interest in showing people, showcasing the kind of research that we do. And my first guest is the lovely Dr. Jodie Hughes from Roehampton University. She's a researcher, a charity founder, and a patient advocate. Welcome, Jodie, and I'm so glad that you are here to open this series with me.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Now, I am not a big fan of reading out people's bios. I like to let the person speak for themselves. So, for people who don't know you, what are like
Mm.
couple of things which you would like people to know about you, about your background, how you got interested in this research? What are like the need to know facts about Jodie?
Um, oh, it's a really long story. But shortened down, I have endometriosis. I was seeking a diagnosis for 19 years, and through that I lost my career. Um, I lost quite a big chunk of myself for a little while and wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with my life because I did lose my career. Decided to apply to university with no real qualifications to my name from school, and luckily got in and did my undergrad degree and then learned that I really, really loved research, especially like social sciences research, psychology and health related quality of life, that sort of stuff. Um, so yeah, my supervisor from my undergrad degree convinced me to do a master's in health sciences and then convinced me to do a PhD in health related quality of life in patients with endometriosis. And then whilst I was doing that, because that obviously isn't enough to do, I started my charity because I went through the process of trying to get a diagnosis. It took so long. And then even once you're through that diagnosis, there's nowhere to go. There's no real signposting of services. The general practitioners don't know what to do with you, but you can't see a consultant. So there's a massive gap in services and care. Um, so I was a bit like, I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through alone. So I started a charity at the whilst I was going through all of that, because I'm quite frankly crazy.
As are a lot of people, because what is very interesting to me, it makes sense for the charity work and for being a patient advocate that you are yourself a patient. But what I have learned through my career, through meeting people, through networking, I was really thinking about this morning. I can count only four people that I've met that are in endometriosis research who do not have endometriosis themselves. And this is really, you know, well, actually, the question is it surprising or not? What is your take on this? Why does this happen so often? So we have patients not only being patient advocates, but we go so far that we end up going into research ourselves.
I think it's because we're failed so impressively. We are failed so, so badly that we go, okay, I need to do something about this. And there's no one else doing anything about it. So I'm going to do it. And I think that's something a lot of people with chronic illnesses go through is that whole I need to do something about this. There's no one helping me. There's no one doing anything for me. So I need to do my little bit towards making a difference,
Hmm.
if
So
that
we're
makes
kind of,
sense.
yes, of course it makes sense. We're kind of the living testament of the patient expert phenomenon. I guess that this could be one of the examples. That's something that I was writing about in my dissertation, and then I was reflecting on it, and like, yes, this is a different a different example, but people going into research and academics actually being patients themselves. It's really become a phenomenon.
Mm.
And what do you think we can do, or what needs to shift in society or to happen in society that this changes, that we have people who are not patients get interested in the disease? It's a
I
very big
think
question, but
it's a massive question. So I think there needs to be a massive shift in the way people see chronic illness. Um, so like we were talking about earlier, it's that, oh, people see us smiling and laughing, so it can't be that bad, when actually I'm strapped to a heat pad that's the whole entire length of my body and have been sleeping half of the day just to do this. So I think there needs to be a shift in how people see chronic illness. I think in education, there needs to be more education around chronic illnesses, not just menstrual health, but all chronic illnesses, so that people have a bit more empathy around it when they're growing up. And then in med school, there needs to be something in like college, in university and med school around let's not just keep researching the same big things like the cancer. Let's not chase those big titles so that we can be chasing money and chasing bravado and all of that. Let's do something that makes a difference to people. That's my take on it.
yes, exactly. I think I agree with you, especially with the medical education part, and unfortunately with the money part, right? Women's health is, as you well know, very underfunded, which
Yeah,
also discourages people from pursuing
yeah,
specialties in this. So that is another thing that
mm,
needs to shift, that it becomes also a bit more attractive to people to research in the
absolutely.
first place. Yeah. We will get back to that, but I want to give you now the chance to show us a little bit about your work. As I understand, you have a lovely Canva presentation for us. So, can you share your screen, or do I need to give you permission for that?
I think I can. Oh, I've sent you a request.
Mm-hmm. There we go. So, whenever you're ready,
Ah, can you see my screen?
yes, perfect. Oh, and the lovely, recognize your
Perfect.
the purple and the yellow of the charity. I recognize your logo already.
Literally everything is purple and yellow. I'm surprised I'm in black tonight, if I'm honest. Um, but yeah, welcome everybody. Um, so when we think about endometriosis, most people immediately think about pain. They think about periods, hormones, surgery, and medical treatment. And those things really do matter really deeply. But today, I'm going to shift the lens a little bit. I want to explore how endometriosis is shaped not just by biology, but by society, by culture, identity, power, inequality, healthcare systems, and institutions. And more importantly, why social science research is essential if we genuinely want to understand this condition and improve people's lives. Because without that perspective, we risk treating bodies but failing people. So we know that endometriosis affects around 1 in 7 to 1 in 10 people assigned for female at birth, making it as common as asthma and diabetes. Yeah, it takes on average 7 to 10 years to get a diagnosis. That delay alone has enormous consequences, be that educational disruption, career instability, financial insecurity, mental health decline, and often a profound loss of trust in healthcare. But here's something that social science research makes very clear. Two people can have very similar disease severity, similar symptoms, and even similar scans, and yet their lives look completely different. One person might manage to stay in work, maintain relationships, and retain a sense of identity and purpose. Another might lose their job, their education, and their social networks, and not to mention their confidence. And very often, the difference isn't biological, it's societal. It's whether you are believed, supported, accommodated, protected, and included, or whether you are dismissed, marginalised, and silenced. So my research focused on understanding life with endometriosis, not just symptoms, but lived experience in its fullest sense. I examined how health-related quality of life is shaped by identity, culture, structural inequality, institutional environments, and power relations. This included exploring how racism influences diagnosis and care, how gender diverse people are systemically excluded from healthcare systems, and how occupational cultures shape stigma and disclosure, and how all of this affects mental health, relationships, self-worth, and identity. In essence, I studied how social structures shape illness and how illness in turn reshapes lives. One of the most important insights from my research is that symptom severity does not reliably predict quality of life. So pain does not equal impact. Two people with similar pain levels may experience really different life outcomes depending on their social context. If you have supportive employers, flexible working arrangements, financial security, stable housing, and compassionate healthcare, you may be able to maintain a reasonable quality of life. But if you lack those protections, even moderate symptoms can become devastating. Quality of life is shaped by societal conditions, by whether people are believed, accommodated, supported, and empowered. And this helps explain why endometriosis can become a life-limiting condition for some while remain manageable for others. My research also highlighted how racism and structural inequality profoundly shape endometriosis experiences. People from ethnic minority backgrounds often face longer diagnostic delays, higher symptom dismissal, cultural stigma surrounding menstruation, and deeply entrenched medical biases. These factors interact to produce delayed care, increased suffering, and poorer health outcomes. Participants frequently described having their pain minimized, psychologized, or normalized, particularly when intersecting with racialized stereotypes about strength, resilience, or emotional expression. This demonstrates how crucial pain is by how crucial. Let's start again. This demonstrates something crucial. Pain is biological, but credibility is social. Who gets believed is shaped by race, gender, class, and power. And until healthcare systems confront that reality, inequality will persist. So in my study, South Asian people reported lower health-related quality of life scores across all region of the questionnaires I used, which meant their health-related quality of life was impacted so much more than all the other races, and found themes such as racism, invalidation, trauma and coping, misdiagnosis, stigma, and the list goes on in that chapter. Endometriosis still remains framed almost exclusively as a women's health condition. This framing systematically erases trans, non-binary, and gender diverse people who experience symptoms. Many face misgendering, denial of care, exclusion from research, and unsafe clinical environments. People who did not identify as the gender they were assigned at birth had the worst health-related quality of life scores compared to all other genders in my study. And the themes that were found throughout the qualitative assessment were transphobia and discrimination, misogyny and cissexism, and pain dismissal and gender identity, as well as pronoun dismissal. Some people delayed or avoided seeking medical health care altogether due to the fear of discrimination, humiliation, or re-traumatization. This is not simply a matter of inclusive language. It is about safety, dignity, access, and trust. Inclusive research and inclusive healthcare are not optional extras, they are ethical necessities. And then workplace and institutional cultures also play a profound role in shaping life experiences. Rigid working environments, productivity-driven cultures, stigma surrounding menstruation, and fear of being perceived as weak or unreliable often force people to hide their symptoms, work through severe pain, or leave employment entirely. In the uniformed services and highly structured professions, these pressures are intensified by cultures of resilience, endurance, and stoicism. This means that endometriosis does not simply affect physical health, it reshapes career trajectories, financial stability, professional identity, and life chances. In this way, illness becomes socially produced and socially amplified. While looking at the uniformed services, we found out that those in the Navy had the worst health-related quality of life scores quantitatively compared to the health professionals and emergency services. Military personnel and healthcare workers described cultures of endurance, limited autonomy, and expectations to perform regardless of pain, whereas police participants reported comparatively greater flexibility to accommodate symptoms. This underscores that health-related quality of life in endometriosis is not solely determined by symptom severity, but also contingent on socio-cultural and organisational structures that can either constrain or enable well-being. So when we understand endometriosis socially, not just medically, we unlock powerful opportunities for systemic change. Social sciences research informs more inclusive healthcare pathways, better clinician training, fairer workplace policies, stronger public health strategies, and more equitable healthcare systems. If we only study endometriosis through a medical lens, which we have been doing for hundreds of years, we create medical solutions. If we study it through a social lens, we create a structural change. And it is that structural change which ultimately improves lives at scale. So endometriosis is not just a medical condition, it's a social condition. It's shaped by culture, identity, power, inequality, and institutions. And health-related quality of life research gives us the tools not just to understand that, but to change it. Thank you. And
Thank you so
I'll
much, Jodie.
you welcome.
And for people who get very interested in your research,
Ooh.
maybe you can send me, or if you have them on hand, maybe even put in the chat some links to certain publications that you would like to share. And I'm wondering if your dissertation, if your doctoral dissertation is available online, or are you planning to publish it as a book or something similar?
Ooh. So I have each area that I looked at was a different chapter of the dissertation. So there was ethnicity, gender identity, and uniformed services. So they were each chapter. So those three chapters I'm planning on publishing in journals. But once that's done, I am planning on writing a book about the whole thing and how I got to writing it. So, sort of semi-autobiographical, but also very research heavy, if that makes sense.
Yes, well, I'm looking very much forward to it. I have a couple of questions of my own, but if anybody
Yes.
would like to ask questions or has comments, feel free to also put them in the chat and then we'll take a look. What I am very interested by is I haven't really read or seen so much before about the military, about the Navy, about uniformed services. So this is very exciting. And I'm interested in general about your sample. So if you could tell us a bit more, who are the people that you were talking to geographically? What were sort of prerequisites for someone to be featured in your research? Was it just UK based or Europe? What? How did you approach this picking your sample since you dig into so many topics here?
Yeah. So it started off very different to how it ended, which I think a lot of research, I think a lot of research, it happens that way. You start off with a very rigid way of that you're going to do something and then it changes. Something happens and it changes. So we ended up with over 2,000 people getting involved in the survey, which was
Wow.
absolutely incredible. And it ended up going worldwide. And I think that is mainly due to our following on social media, and having lots of connections to lots of different researchers that were really happy to share it. So all of our quant work, it went global and it was incredible and I was so happy. And then about a month into it, we were getting lots of people contact myself about gender diversity. Um, and I already knew going into it that I wanted to make sure that my language was very, very neutral anyway. But then there were trans people getting in touch with me that were like, why have you not got this question in the survey? Why have you not got this question in the survey? So there were a couple of tweaks that were made to the questionnaire, more demographic information than anything, so that I could get into it as juicily as possible. Um, but then we noticed that there were a few people from like the police force getting involved and the military getting involved, and there were a lot of healthcare workers that were getting involved as well. And I was like, okay, so we've got something here. And I'm from a very big military family. Um, I was going to join the Navy myself. I'm glad I didn't. Um, but I have a massive military-led family. And I was like, oh, I could do a little bit of research here. And then weirdly enough, I got put in contact with there's a police endometriosis working group on Twitter or X, whatever it is now. I don't go on there. It's a horrible place. Um, and I got in touch with the person that leads that, and we chatted, and I was like, I think I want to do one of my chapters around this. So that's where I got really selective about the people that did the interviews with me. So there were quite a few nurses, there were quite a few police officers. But again, it ended up being people from all over the world that wanted to get involved. So we had someone from New Zealand, we had, if you don't mind me saying, yourself get involved. Um, and it was really, really, really incredible. I did go into it thinking I just want it to be UK based. It'll be easier if it's just UK based. But when you have people actively reaching out to you that want to get involved, I didn't want to say no. And I'm really bad at saying no. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is I need to be better at saying no.
But this resulted into very impressive research and in a very impressive sample. So on the one hand, I'm sure that there were moments where, you know, as a PhD student, that you regretted it a little bit because you gave yourself so much more work. But in the end, you really have something that you can be very, very proud of and something quite unique.
Yeah, yeah, it was a monumental piece of work. And I think that data set that I have can be used for multiple research projects. So it is going to keep me going for the next few years, I think.
Yes, certainly. And I'm sure that it will also inspire people to maybe delve into, how should I put it, like subcategories, into details based on the corpus that you've created.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. Because although it's although it's really, really, really hard work, a PhD is a massively, massively hard piece of work. Teaching now in public health and doing women's health lectures in that public health module, it was really exciting to see how the students had to do a presentation. And like halfway through the module, they had to do a presentation on, and they had to pick a campaign that they wanted to make a public health campaign for. And it was really funny. There were 7 groups, and 4 out of them 7 groups did something on women's health, and I was just like, yes, like I've
Success.
done it. This was it. This was why I've done it.
I'm glad you mentioned teaching because I'm always very interested in people from social sciences or humanities when we get to teach in a more medical environment, let's put it, about the experiences. Is there something that you've noticed with your students that you can think of as either surprising you, or is there a particular area where you saw that there was pushback, something that you wish to change?
Um, so I am only teaching the women's health stuff on the public health module, and our master's students are all international students. Um, and I was really disappointed, but not surprised at the same time that so we have a group of youngish lads that sit at the back, and they're from Africa. They have had the biggest pushback on what I've been teaching, um, to the point of we've actually um, had some quite heated discussions in the class, where they don't feel that they need to learn about um, women's health within the public health space. They don't feel they didn't feel like women's health is a public health priority. It should be more awareness raising. Um, so it's great seeing people do really great things. It's better, in my opinion, when you have someone like that that really pushes back and you can have that discussion and seeing the light bulb moment where they go, okay. Okay, yeah, I actually understand you because all the time we were in class and there was that backwards and forwards, and you had all the girls going, no, 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 we need this and this and this, and all the boys going, I don't understand what you're talking about. But afterwards, I made sure I sat and I wrote a very, very, very plain and clear bullet point description of why exactly we need policy change in women's health. And seeing the responses in the emails, especially from there was one young lad and he was just like, he was having none of it. And actually seeing the response from him was like, okay, I've done my job. I can retire now because I have done my job.
That must have been a very satisfying moment.
Oh, it was so satisfying. And I didn't think um that I would have that. But yeah, I've definitely had that moment now.
But I'm curious, since you've mentioned now that you're teaching international students, and in your research, you did look a lot at culture, so cultural backgrounds, the influences of cultural narratives. Is there, did your research influence your teaching style, let's say? Like, are there things which you really then could apply, or that you were inspired by the results of your research to kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to approach my students in this way? Was there any pedagogical, let's say, benefit to the research?
Do you know what? I think there's always, I think our research always teaches us something. Um, my research taught me a lot about myself, about my own biases, because there is no person in this whole entire world that is without their own biases and their own prejudices, whether it's what you've learned or whether it's how you've been brought up, there's always going to be biases. And um, my research humbled me quite a lot. So there are there are things that, yeah, I learned about myself that has taught me how to go into a teaching setting and probably teach a bit better, especially with the cultural international students. I was scared, if I'm honest, as like a middle-aged white woman going into a room to teach a classroom full of international students. Because I was like, I'm going to say the wrong thing. There is going to be stuff in this lecture that is going to be the wrong thing to say. There are going to be people that where we butt heads, which there were. Um, because in Africa, women's health isn't a priority. And that's what these people have been taught that come into the lesson. So they had their prejudices and biases, and I had my prejudices and biases, and I was really, really worried. But do you know what? Just going into it with an open mind and with curiosity and just me holding my hands up and saying, I am a middle-aged white woman. Yes, I absolutely am. But I am here to learn from you as much as you are here to learn from me. And the fact that I've just been through my own research journey and lecturing journey and all of that. It wasn't long since that long ago that I was a student, so I could bring that into it as well and go, look, I know what you're dealing with at the moment, so let's vibe like that. And I've ended up with four volunteers in our organisation from teaching that class, so I can't have been doing that bad.
Well, that's amazing. And just to kind of tie it in with sort of the purpose of this year, so to say, I'm wondering when it comes to presenting your research,
Mm.
where do you choose to present your research? Have you been able to present your research to medical professionals or in more natural sciences environments? And if you have, what was the feedback like? So, what does it feel like to be a social sciences person in a room with doctors and trying to get them to look at you as equal?
So we're both part of the National Endom National no, no, what's it?
You mean
Seen.
seen?
Social
Social science
endometriosis. Yeah, that's the one.
seen.
Oh, yeah. We're both part of Seen. Um, and it was really interesting how that came around. And that was because we all had a meeting at the World Endometriosis Congress, the not the one just gone, the one before that. Um, and we were all like, we need to do something about this because this conference is just, it's all medical professionals. And I got up on a stage and presented my research in front of all of these medical professionals. And I was like, what am I doing? They're not even listening to me. They don't care what I'm saying. Um, but I was up on stage at this World Endometriosis Congress. Like it was incredible. Um, but yeah, there's a group of social scientists that we did get together, and we kind of went like, how do we make this change? How do we make it that the social scientists and the medical scientists like come together and learn from each other rather than just butting heads or just ignoring each other and go into their separate like presentations. The social scientists should be going to the medical ones, and the medical ones should be coming to the social scientist ones because they'd learn something. And Anneliese Weckesser, like the most incredible social scientist ever, and just all around incredible human, has made it happen so that this past World Congress that was in Australia, it was a lot more. We were integrating a lot more. There were a lot more social scientists there. Um, and that was really, really cool to kind of find your people and go, oh my God, there's so many of us here. This is incredible. So I generally I don't really go to medical conferences. I did right at the very beginning of my kind of research journey. But there's not much point. No one listens to you. No one even like wants to talk to you. Um, whereas the social science research world is like, yay, let's go and have a drink, have a cuddle, let's go do something together. Um, and so yeah, I kind of go to the ones that I know that there's going to be people from scene at. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my answer in a roundabout way.
And Annalise, who you've mentioned, we're going to have her on the 4th of March. So for those of you
Yay!
who are interested in joining, and I have just one more question before we get to
Yeah.
audience questions, and this is something that just really interests me personally. I am wondering, in your research and specifically in your dissertation, if you wrote about yourself being a patient. For example, with my dissertation, that was actually a big debate, which kept, coming up whether I am going to reveal this in the text itself or not. And I was deciding this up until like very late in the process. So I'm wondering if you had these, how did you decide this and what did you do? Did you like include your personal narrative or not?
I didn't include my personal narratives. Um, I did write a lengthy section in there about that I do have endometriosis and that my own prejudices and biases may have influenced the way that I inferred the qualitative data. I hope it didn't. I hope I looked at it through quite a neutral lens, and I've had quite a lot of practice running support groups and things like that, and being very neutral, very keeping my feelings out of things. But there's always going to be stuff that spills over, and when you're writing something as big as a PhD dissertation, and you're stressed and you're hungry and tired and need a drink but don't want to move because the minute you move, you'll be out of the flow of doing it and then you won't go back to the computer. Um, Everything is going to impact what you write, whether you mean to or not. So I did disclose it, um, but I didn't use my own narrative in it.
Hmm. I ended up doing the same thing, although there were two instances where it was a really interesting conversation because we had at the university these classes, they were called the colloquiums, where it was basically just each person that was a student would present their dissertation and then we would all discuss it. It doesn't matter what it was about or where it was from. And two times this was really like that. It was really divided, like the classroom, who thought that it would make it much stronger if I speak about my personal experience, about my activism,
Mhm.
and who was against it. And in the end, I did quite a similar thing to you. I wrote a prologue forward, however, I don't remember what I called it, where I actually wrote about the dilemma and why I, in the end, decided not to include it, but in a way that I did include it since I wrote the whole part
Yeah,
about it, but I'm always curious to see
yeah,
how people make kind of consolidate these two, like you
yeah,
yourself as a researcher and yourself as a patient.
yeah. My two supervisors were very different supervisors as well. I had one who is a biomedical person that does a lot of research on diabetes. So she is very straightforward, very data led, and wants everything very, very succinct. And the other one is a public health psychologist. Um, so he's very much qual stuff and wants everything flowy and everything lovely. So having that conversation with those two supervisors as well was very much like one of them was like, no, it doesn't need to be in there. It's too flowery, it's too fluffy, whatever. And the other one was like, no, you need to have this in there. So I didn't even have the supervisors telling me what to do. They were like, ah. So yeah,
They were just
it's
giving you
tough.
food for thought.
Yeah, yeah. Just completely different sides to the coin. And I was like, please, one of you just give me the answer to this.
And I would like to read out Megan's message that we
Yes.
received. So she says, I was just wondering how you went about making sure the language used didn't exclude gender diverse people. I'm super new to endometriosis research, started in October. Welcome to the club, Megan. And noticed that the vast majority of the research only mentions women. And then if they do mention other gender identities, it is almost just as a disclaimer. Good point. Just wondering how you worded it in your thesis. I really want to make sure that my research is inclusive, so would love your insight on this. I think you're the perfect person to ask this, Jodie.
Um, it's as simple as people with endometriosis. I think people make it too difficult and too scary and are worried to do the wrong thing. I had massive conversations with lots of gender diverse people with endometriosis about like what it should be, what it shouldn't be. And do you know what? As long as you're not saying women with endometriosis, you're all right. It's just people. People have endometriosis, like cis men, gender diverse people, transgender people. It's just people with endometriosis. Um, I will warn you, if you use gender neutral language, you will probably get kickback from lots of horrible people out there that are convinced that it's only women that have endometriosis. I had a really, really, really bad experience during my PhD data collection. Do you want me to talk about this,
I
or
was
is it
actually
too
going to ask you
political?
because I remember there was back in the day it was called Twitter. I remember that we talked about it a little bit, but I don't remember the details, but that you really got
Yeah.
people being
Yeah.
actually offended and attacking you for using gender inclusive language, which sounds
Yeah. Yeah. Because I
the
put
academia
out,
is dangerous.
yeah, academia is very dangerous. I put out a call for participants, for people with endometriosis, and on my on the little picture that went with it, there was a flag. There was a gender inclusive flag. Um, and I was like, and it was Twitter. It was only Twitter. Um, because that seems to be the most toxic place in the world. I had to go to the police because there were thousands and thousands and thousands of comments about how endometriosis is only a women's disease. I will say that if you ever get piled on, do not reply because you can't argue with these people. And 9 times out of 10, I've discovered they're actually bots that are set up. So if one person replies, then it triggers bots from their community to just pile on with just ridiculousness. Um, but yeah, I had to get the police involved, to which the police were pretty rubbish because they were like, nothing we can do. It's freedom of speech. I was like, not really freedom of speech when they're threatening to kill me. And I had a letter hand delivered to my house, which was really scary because obviously I have a child. So like, but yeah, this letter was all sorts of horribleness. So it is a dangerous world, and I I hate the way the world is going for our gender non-conforming people at the moment because it is not a nice place for them to be in.
I didn't know that it went so far that you also got a letter. I
Yeah.
mean, that is really
Yeah,
scary.
they phoned my supervisor at the university, and my supervisor, thank goodness, is amazing. And for a 60-year-old white man, he was just like, what are you even talking about? Bye-bye. Um,
But what were
but
the arguments that these people are using? This is a little bit off topic now, but I mean, we can't just let it
it was
go.
just literally they were up in arms about endometriosis not being a women's endometriosis being a women's condition and only women can have it. And even when like you show them the science, they're like, no, it's not true. It can only affect women. Why are you taking a women's condition off of women? And it's like, I'm not. I'm just making
That
it
is
more inclusive
absolutely
to, yeah.
absolutely ridiculous.
Mm,
But unfortunately, this type of people are very difficult to reason with because they're
yes.
simply not listening to facts. Where now we also know, regardless of the gender conversation, we know that biological men can also have endometriosis. We have case studies. But unfortunately, people who react so emotionally, and I like calling it being emotional because anger is an emotion, which men like us to forget,
Yeah.
but it is, it is very difficult to reason with them.
Mm,
But I can also give you an example of what I did, Megan. I actually wrote and I wouldn't call it a chapter. Let's say it was a couple of pages somewhere near the beginning of my dissertation where I did like a whole overview of the language which could be used. And I was inspired by all of these narratives, like the one that Jodie, that you lived through, where I really went through like the options. So we could say women, why doesn't that work? We could say menstruators, why doesn't that work? We could say people with uteruses, why doesn't that work? So I like went through
yeah.
all of them and then landed on people, which should make sense.
Yeah. It
But
is
that was
because you have to like you you could say menstruators, but then I don't menstruate. I have
Exactly.
endometriosis.
So what about people who have had hysterectomies or who are in
Yeah.
menopause or who are in a chemically induced menopause or who for whatever hormonal reason maybe never even started menstruating or who have not started menstruating yet? We know that it's in preteens.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. In any case, I just have one more question from Instagram that I want to ask you really quickly.
Yes.
A person wanted to know if your research influenced, or let me not paraphrase, if your work as an academic influences the way you approach your charity. That is an interesting question, I think.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Um, I I don't, I never went into the charity to kind of go, I'm going to turn it into a research centre because that's what I want to do. But seeing seeing as many people, like both of them impact each other really, which is crazy and so annoying, but it's what happens. But I see so many people in so much pain and just just struggling and suffering all the time, that through the charity, that makes you want to research more. And then the research go, you find something and you go, that's really interesting. I'm going to do that through the charity and I'm going to make that happen. Or I'm going to do this piece of research through the charity because that piece of research from the university has shown this specific thing. Um, so it's kind of it's chicken and egg, but it's also one thing leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another. Um, so yeah, I am no longer just the founder of Endometriosis South Coast. I'm research consultant and we've got to a point that I can start doing some really, really interesting stuff in the community and do some really community-led, community-based research, which is really, really exciting for me, because it is all about the community for me. It is all about all of those different things, that nobody really looks into with endometriosis is what is happening in the local communities. I've just done a research project for Portsmouth City Council on painful periods in school, but it's looking at it from a older person's view and what they would have wanted to see at school while they were there. So we've just had this massive, I've just had to write this massive report on the research that was there. And it's the usual. It's I would have wanted somebody to actually listen to me. I would have
Mhm.
wanted someone to make me feel safe. I would have wanted someone to teach me about it earlier, and in a culturally sensitive way. So yeah, I think the uni research really feeds into my community stuff, but my community stuff actually really impacts my research as well.
Yes, and all of those things are very interconnected because it's, I think,
Mm.
quite difficult to separate the experiences as well, right? And research is so informed. I mean, what we're doing is lived experience research, so it's informed by people who are going through it themselves. But you are doing such amazing work, Jodie. I'm always excited whatever you put out. And I recommend to everyone to check out Jodie's socials and ResearchGate. Um, Always really good stuff. And I'm very enthusiastically following your career and looking forward to more publications and more opportunities to collaborate. And but we've been
I
chatting for an
love a
hour already.
collaboration.
Thank you so much for your time and effort and just for sharing all your work with me. with us. And I would like to thank everyone who's joined us on Zoom and also everyone that's watching at a later date on YouTube. And yeah, so we will be so every week, on every Wednesday until the 18th of March, I think we'll be chatting with a different person, except next week. But follow on Insta. I will be sharing some things next week. I'm actually in Brussels attending a meeting at the European Parliament about the new women's health policy. I'm very thrilled to be able to be there. So I hope that I will have new and exciting information for everybody to share with everyone. And I'm just honestly so thrilled to be invited to go to the Parliament. I've never been. So whatever
That's
happens, I'm just happy to
incredible.
be, happy to be included. And I think it goes without saying, if anybody has any more questions or insights, feel free to get in touch with me. And knowing Jodie, I think she extends the same invitation.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much once again, Jodie. It's a pleasure. I could chat with you like for hours, honestly. It's always a pleasure, and I hope that we will soon get an opportunity to see each other in person as well at a
I
conference or
know.
something.
I know. It's got to happen soon.
It will for sure. Thank you so much, and
Thank
hopefully
you.
see you again soon.
Yeah.